Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us for today's episode of Recruit Military Live, where we will be diving into the impact veterans have on the civilian world and how they continue to lead and drive progress after service. My name is Gabby Flores, and I am joined by my amazing co-host, Raul Torres. How's it going your way, Raul?
Good. How you doing today, Gabby?
Pretty good. We were talking before. I'm in Arizona, so I'm loving this triple digits weather that we already have. I love spring. As everyone said, Arizona's done. It's done preheating. We're already officially into summer for us. But how's it going your way?
Not triple digits, especially not in spring. So I'm not envious at all.
Jelly.
Right, but today we do have a very special guest, former colleague of ours. So very excited to have her on with us today. Our guest for today is going to be Jess Maty. She served for 6 years as a medical service corps officer in the Air Force, alongside her husband Brandon, who also served as a pilot. Jess separated in 2018 to focus on her growing family before entering the civilian workforce. To her surprise, finding a job in the medical industry was difficult, but that is when the world of veteran support and recruiting found her. Although it is not in the field Jess is degreed in, it quickly became her new passion. She is now the military outreach manager for John Deere, connecting veterans with direct hire and skill bridge opportunities with their nationwide dealerships. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming Jess Maty. Jess, welcome.
Hi, friends. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. Thank you again for taking the time to join us today, and especially wanting to highlight during Women's History Month. We love to see some awesome, amazing women veterans still leading the charge after service. So thank you again for your service, and then how you continue to support the military community.
Yeah, right back at you, Gabby.
Thank you. So starting off, if you just wanted to give us just a quick intro as to what your role specifically is within John Deere, just so our audience understands how exactly it is that you're impacting the military community over at John Deere.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, like Raul said, I am the military outreach manager. We're a very small team of 3. It's my boss, David Bostic, and then also my super awesome partner, Marcus Irizarry. And together we help transitioning service members, veterans, reservists, their family members find meaningful, gainful employment with our nationwide John Deere dealerships, to include skill bridge opportunities for our transitioning service members.
That's fantastic. I was about to say, it looks like you already have members of your fan club, but it's Marcus.
So
he says hello. Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Marcus. We appreciate it. So going right into it, can you tell us a little bit about your specific military background? I know we heard a little bit about it from your intro, and what your transition was like into the civilian workforce.
Sure. So I was part of a very special AFSC or Air Force service code or specialty code that I had to apply to as an MSC or Medical Service Corps officer. What was really unique about that role is that every 1 to 2 years you get to rotate to a different specialty. So logistics, information systems, TRICARE, resource management. It kept things really interesting, but I didn't have much of a transition out of the military because my husband and I were always under the assumption that as soon as we started having kids, one of us would get out. That dual mom and dad service life is horrible. So I took the jump. My husband had a 10-year commitment, so he couldn't. So when I got out, I wasn't really looking to bridge the gap for at least the next 6 months. But when I did start looking for a job, that's when reality hit really hard. I started to apply, and a lot of medical civilian companies were really nervous to hire me because they couldn't translate my military career into what they were looking for. Even though I was kind of explaining how they relate, it was really difficult. So my sister-in-law actually told me about an awesome company called Bradley Morris. And she said, if you sign up for an account, you could find a career that way. not more than probably 2 days later, I got a call, and they actually wanted to hire me as a client strategist for their sister company, RecruitMilitary, that's now merged. It's now
Mhm.
RecruitMilitary, and that's kind of what kickstarted my new passion of veteran support.
That's amazing. And
That
I
is,
love that. Thank you for giving. It's awesome having a former teammate because they understand all of the background and they're able to just put in
Yeah.
those explanations into the conversation. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And you mentioned, the obstacle that I think a lot of military community members face, which is that translation issue, right? Of maybe they had very specific, maybe something not like administration where clerical work is very easily explained, but something
Yeah.
like your MOS, your job field, where it's constantly changing and it's very intricate. How exactly did you manage to translate those? And what traits did you feel, especially speaking to the medical community, that you're like, no, I can relate so much. I have so many, awesome job skills that are very in demand, but how were you able to translate that? And what traits do you feel, were relatable to that job field?
So what I did and what I actually advise every transitioning military member to do, specifically with their resume, is demilitarize your titles and your resume entirely. So when you're putting different acronyms in there, spell it out or civilianize it. So I was a medical logistics flight commander. I would put medical logistics team leader instead of flight commander. They don't know what flight commander means.
Mhm.
And then a lot of the systems that we used in our medical system or our medical world were actually designed based off of medical standard, but it was called something else. So
Mhm.
I would put explanations in there like this system. We used this system and it's like this civilian system. And so I would try and do a lot of that groundwork for them so that the questions were very minimal when you get to like the interview process. They can see it on your resume, you can verbalize it. So that was the biggest one as far as like characteristics, adaptability.
Mhm.
And this is for any field regardless of medical field. And this is for any AFSC or MOS or rate, right? I know for mine, hopping every 1 to 2 years to a different specialty, we were given 1 to 2 weeks to read through all the Air Force instructions about that specific section or, flight. Not only understand all of it, but become a subject matter expert on it and be able to brief commanders on whatever area that they had questions on at any time. So
Mhm.
you're taking this veteran who operates that way, putting them into your world, your civilian world, you can expect them to catch on to things fast and become experts at them fast. So yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's, I was going to say, that's really the story of everyone transitioning out of the military. Like, hey,
Mhm.
how do I translate what seems like a completely different language to the civilian workforce into like what
Yeah.
they want to see?
Yeah.
I luckily, applying for RecruitMilitary, obviously, we're already in that space. They already understood what I did. So if I had something like, I don't know, like chief marketing, whatever billet I was holding at the time, obviously I translated it, but it would have still made sense
Yeah.
to everyone on the RecruitMilitary side. But either way, absolutely, that is good practice to make sure to do your due diligence, do the research, and see even little things, just as like you were saying, the job titles. Make sure that's
Hmm.
translated into the civilian terminology.
Well, that brings up another point I want to make. Obviously, RecruitMilitary is focused on the military world and the value of a veteran, and is comprised of many veterans and spouses and allies. So tell me how they saw my resume as a medical background and said she'd make a great client strategist completely out of her field. It's because they understood my resume and said, this is somebody who is very administrative by nature. No, we're not a medical field, but her expertise could translate very well and be able to thrive in this environment. And so I also tell my transitioning veterans or service members, find a company who is very veteran friendly, not and veteran ready. And so they will be able to understand your background and what you bring to the table and be able to kind of grow and mold you that way.
Absolutely.
100%.
I think that's something that a lot of veterans and military members are afraid of, is not being understood or valued. So when you find an organization that not only has, veterans within that workforce, but they understand where you're coming from, they can look at a resume and see everything that you bring to the table and translate that in so many different departments, like the
Yes,
world is your oyster, type of option. So no, that's
absolutely.
right on the nose, Jess. And so moving on to the next point, one phrase that we hear a lot in the military community is advancing the line when it comes to our troops and our mission. In the civilian workforce, what does that mean to you now in the position that you are also being able to continue to support the military community and their new mission of meaningful employment?
Sure. So to me, specifically in this role, advancing the line means to continue to be aggressive in pulling down those barriers, including common stereotypes and stigmas of military members. There's many companies out there that are still missing the mark when it comes to understanding the value of a veteran. And there's still so many barriers to entry that these veterans are facing to even get noticed in a system. And so I don't know if Kelly is ready to pull open the website, but
Yeah, we can do
this
that right now.
this specific reason of pulling down these barriers to entry and barriers to knowledge is the exact reason that our team does what we do. We have a very personalized white glove approach to where the veterans can fill out a contact card on this page. If you scroll down, there's a big green section where you can submit a contact card. Now, everybody that submits a contact card gets a 30-minute personalized conversation with my partner, Marcus, or myself, depending on what region you're looking to work. And you get to talk to a live human who gets to understand your experiences, who gets to review your resume live with you and apply live with you. And after you apply, or if you're going for a SkillBridge internship, we carry those conversations to our POCs, our hiring managers and HR managers at our nationwide dealerships. We explain and translate your background for you. And then we get those opportunities for you. We are like your shoulder partner and your battle buddy when it comes to this. I can't tell you how many times we've had a veteran come into our system and say that they've applied for hundreds of roles and we're the first human that they've talked to, or we're the first email that they've received back. That's a problem. And we need to advance that line. We need to get better across the board. And our team, we're not perfect. There's things that we're trying to do daily that improves our program and our processes. So my only hope is that we are loud enough as a collective to empower and motivate other companies who may not have been in this space before to follow suit and fall in line.
No, absolutely. And we love that your organization understands that aspect, especially now with the advancement in technology and AI and everything being automated, the importance of that human to human contact. You understand that, especially in an already very shaky, nerve-wracking time for veterans making that transition from active duty or reserve just to full-time civilian. It's already a very nervous
It
time
is.
frame for them. So being able to speak to someone, a real human, immediately have that conversation, that one-on-one, is a game changer for them.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to that, our whole team is veterans. Our boss is a Marine, and Marcus is also Air Force veteran. So talking to somebody who knows your language and knows they've walked in your boots, that adds another level of comfort too.
Yeah, it makes a whole world of difference. It's like walking into a home that you're
Yeah.
familiar with, but like people you may not know, but it somehow is familiar and welcoming. So absolutely.
That reminds me about our job fairs. You walk in and not every single recruiter, just not every single recruiter is a veteran, but a lot of people there, most everyone there understands where you're coming from, and a lot of them are vets. So that kind of just reminds
Puts you
me
at
of
ease.
that feeling. Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
And coming from that amazing military experience that you were speaking on, how do you feel that your military background has shaped how you approach challenges or problem solving in a multifaceted environment, especially being a woman of many hats from your just from your military service alone, having to
Yeah.
change, specialties every 1 to 2 years is amazing, but I'm sure that's very beneficial when it comes to applying that to, problem solving in the real world.
Hey, I learned very early on that problem solving is not a one-man show, not a one-woman show. You are not only missing out, but you're hindering your problem solving abilities if you are not including your team. So I was a 21-year-old butter bar, second lieutenant, fresh out of college, put in a team of 15 people of all ages, of all ranks, of all walks of life with way more experience and knowledge than me. It would have been silly to try and problem solve and run that show on my own. I not only respected my team, but I heavily leaned on their expertise. And so I would say that you need to lean on your team and problem solve together, and your results are going to be way more successful if you go at it as a collective.
No, that's absolutely right. I'm sure you've probably heard this before, but Raul and I were stationed together at my last duty station.
I actually
I think
didn't know that.
yeah, we were. He's actually the person who I found this job through. So a random little
Cool.
LinkedIn post. So thank you again, Raul. But I think we can attest to each other working in the same team on Camp Lejeune at Second MEF was it was impossible to do anything without teamwork, especially in the public affairs realm, wearing like different hats, different billets. I constantly relied on my team members, and that was reciprocated with Raul and the rest of our team. So 1,000,000% couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah.
And coming from that experience now at John Deere dealerships, how do you feel that while still trying to drive progress, how do veteran perspectives add value inside of such a largely established organization such as John Deere dealerships? How do you feel that you're continuing to evoke that change?
Veterans are charged to solve problems in very unique environments, sometimes in literal war zones. And so they have the mental fortitude that not many civilians have, just because it was developed. And on top of that, innovation. We're also trained to come up with things in very creative ways because sometimes we're forced to.
Mhm.
And so in a company specifically like John Deere and our dealerships, we're constantly looking for innovation, constantly looking for ways to improve our processes and even our equipment. And so sometimes taking somebody that used to look at things from a very like sometimes upside down or like weird angle, and they're like trained to look at things in really particular ways, they can come in with a completely new perspective. I just really can't say enough about the brain of a veteran. It's just very unique and valuable.
Absolutely. And is there maybe like a specific project or time that you can think of where, your background, your leadership helped move something forward? Whether, that was with John Deere or any other position that you've held.
Yeah, actually, so I am administrative by nature. It was what I did. And when you're dealing with healthcare, you have to be very clean with your data. You have to be very specific. You can't mess that up. And so when I came onto the team, my boss, my poor boss, if he's watching this, hi, he was a
He's a
one-man
Marine, he can handle
show.
it.
He was a one-man show, and he can only do so much, and it was kind of like his side baby, his side project. And so when I came on, he's been amazing. He's like, Jess, take it, run with it, mold it, do what you need to do to make it succeed. And so we turned it into a very white glove approach, and we came up with a lot of different data systems to support what we did. Now we have automated systems and Power BI reports that just auto generate with every new set of information that comes in daily, weekly, and we're able to take that and our successes and areas where we need to improve and report it to our leadership and command so they can continue to see the value of our program.
No, I love that. And exactly, when I asked the question, have there been any specific instances? I'm sure like a million came to your mind, but that one is, I can understand how instrumental adding in those automated programs, and it just relieves so much, work on the back end for you guys. But it's just something with your clerical background, how exactly like you said, having a fresh, innovative perspective, you're like, hey boss, well, let's try this. And then boom, a whole new world for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So jumping from that, your leadership, because obviously you have a wide variety of leadership in many different aspects. And we know that is coming from all different branches, different jobs, different billets, that leadership can look very different. How would you describe your leadership style, especially, being an officer and now being in the role that you are? How is that translated for you?
I don't know, Marcus, what's my leadership style?
Tell me. It's a great
Be nice.
Because it's one thing to think that you're this type of way, but you're like, how am I being what's my perception? How am I being perceived as a leader? It's a whole other ballgame.
It's really hard for me to talk about myself in that way. But here's what I'll say. Here's what I say. I try to be like. I've been blessed to have amazing leaders in my life, both civilian and in the military. And the one thing that I see that I caught on to and I try to emulate is that when you fail, it's your fault. When you succeed, it's your team's doing. Like you lead from the front. You don't ever charge anybody with anything that you aren't willing to do yourself. When I was the SMTI instructor in ROTC, whenever my team would do something they're not supposed to do and I made them drop and give me 20, I dropped with them. And I tried to carry that into active duty. I tried to carry that into what do you say? Run through burning buildings for your teammates.
Yes,
Oh, Marcus, you're so sweet.
Burning buildings.
Oh, I love you.
I love the motivation, Marcus.
I know, he's awesome. Right back at you, bud. So yeah, I just try my best to build up the team as much as I can. And it's not about me. I never want it to be about me. I want it to be the successes about my team. And then if the accolades and everything else come afterward, awesome. But it's never about me.
That's so great. And Gabby, we got so lucky. That just brought me back to MEF, how lucky we were with leadership. It was pretty incredible.
I started to get a little hairy
towards the end, yeah, but we had a really good run. Yeah, right. But that just goes to show how much leadership changes the feeling in the room, the just your motivation to do really good things. And it just brought me back to that moment in 2MEF where we're like, wow, this is what great, awesome, the best leadership out there looks like, and then you see other things and then you move on with your life. But it's always good to have great leadership, and it sounds like it's awesome where you're at right now, Jess, as far as carrying that over.
Yeah, definitely trying. And our current boss, David Bostic, he's an amazing leader as well. I'm very lucky with the team that we have.
No, that's amazing. And so when it comes to your role, your experience, your background, obviously you represent so much. Do you feel that, having that visibility plays a role in helping others see what's possible in their own careers? Whether it's, being a woman veteran, being a veteran in just in general, do you feel that you having that representation in the world, seeing that, John Deere and their dealerships, recruit from the military community and are very successful within that workforce. Do you feel that how important that visibility is?
I mean, I can't say how important it is, because literally every advancement in the space that we have is because people were talking about it. They were talking about their successes and failures. And so unless we're candid and visible about our current journeys and where we're doing great and where we're failing, or the different things that we're going through, we can't learn, and we can't give our best pieces of advice so others don't make the same mistakes that we did, or maybe we make things easier for others. So definitely understatement of the year that it's important. Yeah.
No, I love what you just said, because both, I think veterans, you mentioned it, you hate talking about yourself and like, I'm a great leader. Like I think it's something that all military members are just like horrible. We hate it when it comes to writing a resume and typing up all our accomplishments for like,
Yeah.
but it is important as, as veterans, as military spouses, as dependents, to your own horn sometimes, so that people can see what is able to be accomplished. And the same, like you mentioned, maybe with any obstacles or downfalls that they've had to overcome, like, hey, this can happen, and probably there's a high probability that it will happen, but it's part of your journey. It's part of that transition and part of your growth. And having that being expressed and visible to the rest of the military community can be very encouraging. We talk about a lot of the fact that during that transition or after they've transitioned, it can feel very lonesome. It can feel like you're going through the struggle alone, right? You're riding that struggle bus alone, but you're not. We promise you're not.
No.
And with that, kind of wrapping things up, what would, if anything, what advice would you give to veterans, preparing to enter the civilian workforce?
I have so much, but I'm gonna keep it to two. So my first one is, for the past 4 to 20 years, you've been told where to go, what to wear, and what to do. Now is your opportunity to figure out what you really want to do. Don't be scared to go outside of what you were degreed in. Don't be scared to go outside of what you did in the military. I am nowhere near a hospital right now, and I'm loving what I do. So now is your shot to finally do what you've always dreamed of. And my second piece of advice is, if you get a job that wasn't really the title that you were expecting, wasn't really the pay you were expecting, don't worry. Do your job, do it well, and maintain good character. People will notice and opportunities will follow. I got where I am today because I did as good as I could in the role that I had, and other people noticed and almost like, sought me out. So just maintain your good character, do your job, do it well, and opportunities will follow. You won't be in the same spot for long.
Those are amazing nuggets of wisdom, and kind of a similar question, but if there was one thing you wish you had known early on in your transition, what would that be?
Oh, there's so much support out there for you now. I mean, I wish I had this when I separated. SkillBridge was barely a thing. Look for it. There's a lot of companies, to include RecruitMilitary, that are really advocating for you and really wanting to know how more they can help you. On top of that, stay connected with other veterans that are in your shoes, because it does get lonely. It does feel like you're on an island by yourself, but it doesn't need to be that way. And if you don't have anybody, please find me on LinkedIn. I will be your friend. I'll be on that island with you. Yeah, I wish I knew those two things. Stay connected and look for those companies that want to support you.
Absolutely.
Just fill out that contact card and you'll get right in contact with Jess.
Yes.
There's no one better to have on the island with you than Jess, because we know she is a woman of many hats. So anything you need, she's probably got experience in it.
I got you.
Exactly. Well, thank you again, Jess, so much for coming on and showing us the world and the amazing support of John Deere and their dealerships. And for anyone interested, we did drop the link to John Deere's military hiring program. So fill out those contact cards with further information. Jess, thank you again so much for coming on and sharing a wealth of knowledge with us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's episode of Recruit Military Live. And we will see you next time.
Bye, everybody.